Loves that, don't you? Okay. Call our meeting of order officially. I think I'm a couple minutes late. We don't have any public comments, so I'll just point out the emergency exits on either side of the blue curtain up here, and of course the back of the room. Grateful for those who are attending here tonight. Our first item then on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion for approval? Lots of motions. Joyce, and a second. Kevin, any discussion or changes that people saw? Nope, all in favor? 6-0. That will remind me to recognize the absence of Damon tonight, so he will not be here. Have one commendation on the agenda for Kevin Glover, who has completed his 6 hours of fiduciary training for board members, right? So congratulations. Thank you. That's the last of your official training?
Required training. Unofficial. And it's definitely not the last of training.
Thank you. So thank you. Judy, see what you have to look forward to? Official recognition, right? And we will jump right down to communications. The student advisor's not here tonight, and so just president's report, don't have much. The excitement's building in all the schools. I think even here tonight, talking with Maureen, my kid's coming in tomorrow, so I can't imagine the kids in the schools are going crazy. We saw a little bit of that last week in Brooks Hill, already excitement building up. And I'm just going to continue to say thank you to all the people. I am more excited now after experiencing a few of those meetings related to the DAC than I was even before I started, to see the enthusiasm, the level of commitment that people are making, and the time. And one, I want to continue to express gratitude for that. I think the investment that people are making is going to be well worth it. And grateful for the efforts of U of R. Was a genius move. As always, for those who missed it, I don't know how many attended. The Wall of Distinction was an awesome ceremony. Just something great that Fairport does, a good move, but impressed and touched by the efforts of those people who work with our kids. It really is fantastic. And so, just since it's a time of year, instead of happy holidays, I want to say happy Hanukkah. That ends tomorrow night, so our Jewish friends, and they're hoping they're enjoying their celebration, and Merry Christmas and Happy Kwanzaa then, which starts the day after, right, February or December 26th. Great time of year. Hope that it's wonderful for everybody. With that, Brett?
I'm going to go by the mic.
Are you? Wow, that looks really official. Okay.
It is a great time of year. So many incredible things happening at all of our schools, and I get the joy every single day to experience it in the schools forum, from our kindergartners all the way up to the high school. There's so much joy and celebration occurring. From our, performing arts to our interscholastic and extracurricular. It's a tribute to our commitment to the whole child, as we've been talking about with future planning. I do need to recognize 12 teachers who were recently given National Board Certification. National Board Certification is an accreditation, it's a validation and a celebration of the teaching profession. It's a credit and a tribute to deep reflection and a commitment to excellence in professional practice. And I would like to recognize Matt Riccione, Christina Evans, Joseph All, Christina Crowfoot, Virginia Donahue, Jessica Hagedorn, Julie Marshall, Alyssa Dechek, Maureen Agulia, Jean Hensel, Jessica Tennant, and Maura Whitman. That's incredible. That's an incredible representation of teachers who are taking it upon themselves to engage in professional development on the art and science of teaching. I celebrate, recognize that incredible accomplishment, because it's an extremely rigorous process, and I look forward to maybe we can even talk about it at a workshop so you can get some insights into how teachers, and especially in Fairport, I don't have the exact number, but we have quite a number of teachers representing the National Board Certification, and we're proud of that. So congratulations to those wonderful educators. One thing I need to say, in the midst of all the future planning, which I'll be talking in a little bit, but I really think it's important that we begin discussing and putting our eyes on this year's budget. We've been talking a lot with our local representatives, and we traveled to Albany this past month And I don't mean to, get, highfalutin and preachy, but, a fundamental value of American culture is free and appropriate education for all school-age children. In 1852, Massachusetts passed the first law requiring school-age children to attend school free through high school. Access to free and appropriate education opens the doors to equity, access, and opportunity, something that near and dear to Fairport, that otherwise would not be realized. It's an inalienable right at the core of who we are as a nation. Over the past several years, funding for public education has been under siege and is threatened by opposing entities who are vying for funding from the same source, and that source is New York State. This year's budget does not appear to be promising, rendering Fairport, like all school districts, to play defense, protecting the vitality of our schools while striving to meet the high expectations of our community. Now, we're still reeling from the effects of the loss of GEA. Between 2010 and 2016, we lost over $33 million in revenue. And like I said, we're still trying to recover from that. And I don't think we have or ever will. There's a tax levy limit that says that we can't go above a 2% tax levy limit. That inhibits our ability to raise revenue. We haven't received our foundation aid in its full effect. Fairport, since 2007, when the foundation aid formula was enacted, has not received approximately $82 million in such aid. As we move along and as we advocate, we're going to be looking at foundation aid. We're going to be asking them to fully fund foundation aid to make sure that we're getting our share so we can give and provide the very best experiences. We've been receiving moderate increases of 1% a year. If you know the cost of life, it goes up at a much higher rate than that. We're looking for tax cap exclusions. The tax cap is here to stay. This is the era of the tax cap. It sells well from our policy and political leaders, so that's not going anywhere. But there's things that they could do to provide some exclusions to support our ability to raise revenue. And there's always the conversation about charter schools. They play under different rules than public schools, and they vie for the same dollars that we do. And so any dollar that goes to charter schools, who are held to different accountability measures, are dollars that we don't see. So we have our work cut out for advocacy, and I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation as we move along. Like I was saying, the reports don't look promising. We should receive the aid that we received last year, but that falls way short. So please stay tuned for further updates relative to that piece. Like Peter said, on December 16th, we kicked off our District Advisory Council. It was an incredible night in this room. There were 95 out of 107 participants. And the energy was an energy that you would only find in a Fairport community forum. And we are excited to kick off the DAC, and since its inception, there's been incredible momentum. There were focus groups, and there were 1,070 people who were interviewed as part of our focus groups, and there's the breakdown right there. You could see that faculty and staff and our students were a majority of the respondents. Parents, we're hoping that they'll have more opportunities with our next survey, which will be going out in January, from January 2nd to January 9th. So parents will have, community members will have more opportunities to have a voice in our future planning efforts. Some of the main themes, I won't go over all of them, I'll just go over a few of them, but the Fairport culture is strong. There is a sense of loyalty, pride, and affection deeply woven throughout our school community. So out of all those participants, this is what they were saying. They were also saying that our staff is universally respected and supported and at the core of who we are. Very reassuring to hear. And a commitment to the whole child program distinguishes, again, who we are. That's been a priority of the Board of Education since I've been here for the past 13 years. Predominant weaknesses. Declining enrollment. People are recognizing that declining enrollment could impact staffing, it could impact the programming and the amount of programming. Projected revenue shortfalls, like I just mentioned, our inability to raise revenue or to receive full foundation aid are at the core of this. Aging facilities. Participants agree that our schools are well maintained, but they're outdated. They're the same schools that we went to when we were going through high school. Technology was a concern. Concerns that we've fallen behind as a district, whether it be from an infrastructural standpoint or from a device one-to-one initiative standpoint. And another weakness that was outlined was the lack of alignment in curriculum and instruction. Many staff articulated that a lack of alignment in curriculum across and within buildings. And that's something that I actually am pleased to see that people are recognizing that that's something we can continue to build upon. Opportunities. This process, people are excited about the District Advisory Council, an opportunity for as many people to come together to understand, celebrate what we're doing, but also understand where we can continue to improve. People see this as an opportunity to reconfigure, to take a look at our grade configuration and how we're using our buildings. Maybe take advantage of declining enrollment. Upgrade our infrastructure. Create technology-rich experiences. Really market ourselves. Take a look at our branding and start celebrating who we are as an educational institution. People want to continue to talk about school times. I know the Board of Education certainly does too. Enrichment was a theme. How do we continue to meet students where we are to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all students with enrichment opportunities? And again, there it is, lining our curriculum. People are recognizing that. Threats, again, financial insecurity, declining enrollment, changing demographics, and being able to support students who are in need adequately with our limited revenue streams. Facilities, lack of housing for families with young children. Not a lot of houses are for sale in Fairport. So, we have people coming to Fairport. We want, being able to have adequate and appropriate housing was a concern. Lack of action, drugs and alcohol, and New York State would be a threat by the people who participated. There were some targeted questions that are telling. I'll give you a chance to read through those. And from our U of R partners, they would say that these numbers are pretty good. Parents feel involved. We communicate with them effectively. Their children feel safe, 4.5 out of 5. And they even feel safe on the school bus. Again, all positive indicators from what our researchers who do this across the state would say. And these are some of the questions that we ask students. How well is Fairport preparing you when you graduate? How hard is Fairport? Do you feel safe? Is bullying a problem? And general perception of the quality of their schools. And you could see their responses. The lower the number, the better for the bullying piece. And that's not surprising. We know that when kids are in middle school and as they enter high school, these numbers are a little higher, but when it gets to high school, it sort of norms itself out. But it's still an important data point, and it's the voice of our students. So very impressive. They had a great showing. And as you would imagine, through the focus groups, there were lots of people who had all sorts of suggestions on how we should reconfigure our buildings. It was so significant that it was noteworthy. And it will be definitely a part of our conversation as we move along. The timeline is moving along. I asked, that we cross these out because it's good to see that, we could check some of these dates off and we're making progress and we're right on target with our work with the District Advisory Council. The survey, very important, will be accessible to the community January 2nd through the 9th. We'll be sharing that information in the commentator. There'll be live links. There'll be paper copies for those who don't have access to the web, but we're going to ask community members to participate in the survey so we can continue to feed our process. And you can see that the report is scheduled to be done a week later. On January 22nd, this is a confirmed date. There'll be a full DAC meeting from 5 to 8. We'll have a working light dinner with the team and processing the survey analysis. On the 12th is another full DAC meeting to identify strategic initiatives. Again, same time, 5 to 8. We will not be doing any more full-day sessions. That was a request of many of the members, and I respect that. People work. Our teachers need to teach. So we're going to be moving these into late afternoon, early evening. And by February, there's going to be a strategic plan writing team. And this writing team is going to have a good month to start distilling all the information from the focus groups, from the surveys, and from the questions that they've been working on in their study teams to write recommendations and considerations, I should say, for a strategic plan. We'll be reporting that back to the full DAC so we can see that, did we get this right? Did we hear you correctly? And sharing this information with the Board of Education. And for several weeks, the board will have it and have an opportunity to process it and grapple with some of the big decisions that they have relative to educational programming, fiscal sustainability, and our facilities plans for the future. By the end of June, the Board of Education will hopefully adopt a strategic plan, and then the summer months will be building that plan specifically with a task analysis, a work plan with strategic measures so we can continually report on our progress. That will happen this summer and be implemented next year. Any questions from the board? Comments?
I'm, not to put my fellow board members on the spot, well, I guess I am to put you on the spot. We have a variety in terms of newly elected, appointed, and some of you who are longer standing members. Is that the okay way to word it? I'm just curious in terms of surprises from your perspective. I mean, some of you sat there all day and they had us go through what surprised us. In many ways, there hasn't been some to me. I think we're getting feedback as board members, which was good, but just your thoughts on those things you're hearing and what's been reviewed.
I didn't really hear any surprises. As you say, we hear from people all the time. So I think whatever was in there, I've heard it from people. And having just run again for re-election, I went house to house, so I spoke to a lot more people than I do in an average year. So I really did hear a lot of what came through here.
I, for one, though, in this format, glad it's out there more now. I think in some ways, not just us hearing it, it's now out there being discussed by a larger group, understanding the challenges, Brett, that you've gone over, our weaknesses as well as threats, but also the opportunities and our advantages, our strengths. But
I would say similar, that really this clarified themes that we've continued to hear over the last probably 5 years as they emerged, but it was, I guess, helpful, refreshing to hear it distilled into the points the way the U of R team did. So I appreciate that.
they've done a great job of distilling it and wording it back to us, I think.
And I'm fairly new at this. And so it has been wonderful for me in terms of organizing the information and hearing so much about what the community thinks and trying to integrate that with the data that I find on our website. So it's been really helpful and informative.
Good.
One of the best parts for me is to observe our facilitators at work, and some of them are in the audience. Definitely, they don't do this for the recognition, but I need to honor their great work. Bob Clark and Don Young, who've been, creating opportunities for people to interact on facilities. Nate Reuter and Deb Miles, who are doing a great job managing and leading people through the fiscal pieces. And Janet King and Leanna Watt are tackling the big ideas of whole child programming and the educational programming component of this work. And it's been inspiring to see the synergy. I'm learning from them. We meet frequently. We're developing this process, and it's really neat to see it all come together. But they've been putting in a lot of effort to make sure that their groups are, as I say, wired for productivity, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
They're also very organized, punctual. It's really being handled well.
Thank you. Well, I know who to surround myself around, don't I? Yeah.
Can I also add, we like to say to people, we don't have a preconceived idea, and I really do not have a preconceived idea of what the final outcome is going to be. But the conversations that we're having in the DAC groups, in the smaller groups that are there, we're not being forced into an opinion, forced into one area. There's a lot of conversations. What else could we do? What other opportunities are there? Brett, I think it's wonderful that we're getting information out. And the piece that I kind of knew, but until you said it, well, tonight and then in an earlier meeting, we know that the state doesn't do what we would consider to be a fair share. But when I finally got the number that it's 1% of state aid, and then I did my own version of math, which is one of those tricky things. So when you say, normally we get 2/3 of our money from the state, so we get 1% added on to 2/3, and then we get up to 2% of the rest of the money, which is 1/3, all together, and we may tell everybody, oh, we can get up to 2/3, 2%. Everybody hears about the local property tax. They think that's what we're getting. We're getting half of that when you look at the total picture in terms of money. And it's one of those things where the more information we get, I'm hearing a lot of different nuances to different things, and the same thing with the facilities. I'm hearing a lot of nuances to different things, and I do want to say I'm very excited about this whole proposal, because I have not got a preconceived notion of where we're going to go.
And I always say that the process will yield the best results, and it's been great to see everybody, work towards a common goal. There's passions and people have their interests, but the process that the facilitators have put together will be informative, will give us some really strong things, some really important things to think about come this spring, for sure. For sure. Communication is critically important, and I think it was actually in one of the opportunities here is there's an opportunity here for us to do some marketing, right? From this point forward, how do we market our schools? How do we celebrate our schools? How do we make sure that people understand what's happening from our news feeds, our social media news feeds, working with our local government leaders, our business leaders? We're going to continue to try to get the message out as much and as frequently as possible. And I know that many people are busy. I know that people are trusting us and what we're doing with our schools, but we want as many people involved and well informed. I think it's also important to say that this is an incredible school district, and holidays are just another time for us to experience the joy in our schools. I'll be looking forward to the end of this week. The next 3 days are going to be full of fun, positive energy, and so much joy that you would only find what's unique to this district. And I'm looking forward to immersing myself in that and seeing everyone next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. I guess with that, Matt, we'll turn it over to you for a treasurer investment report.
Okay, good evening and thank you. Tonight we have the treasurer's report for the month of October 2017. We had a beginning balance of $36 million, receipts for the month of $50.6 million, disbursements of $9.3 for an ending cash balance of $77.4 million. Of the $77 million, Approximately $22.5 million is invested in T-bills and $18.1 in insured cash sweep account and CDs. The investments are diversified across three financial institutions, and of that, and you won't see it on this report or in future months' reports, but the investments are primarily maturing in April, which will account for about $157,000 of operating interest and $64,000 of reserve interest. So, and it'll be cash basis, so you won't see that until April.
Right.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Move on to the approval of the consent calendar. Although we're not supposed to make comments, there are some pretty impressive donations listed in there that I hope people will get a look at. But the approval of our minutes and donations, as well as acceptance of bid recommendations. So, motion to approve. Maureen, second. Judy? All in favor? 6-0. Then item 7, personnel, 7A, personnel actions. I'm going to do our instructional staff, long-term substitutes, creation of a full-time ESOL teaching position, extension of parenthood leave of absence, alternative education, spring tutors, alternative education, spring academic advisors, substitute teacher appointments, administrative substitutes. We have coaching appointments as well as resignations, and then athletic supervisors being approved. So a motion to approve those. Marty, and second. Joyce, any questions or discussions? All in favor?
some familiar
Oh, never
names.
mind. What's that?
I see some familiar names.
That's a positive, right?
That's a positive.
Okay. All in favor? 6-0. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just like to say, it's great to see when the people that are being recognized come to the board meetings, and, that shows their excitement and passion. So we appreciate your participation and engagement.
Thanks. 7B, non-instructional civil service actions, including new appointments, rate change, recalls, transfer, rehire, retirements, resignations, and a couple terminations. So a motion to approve. Marty, second. Judy? Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Excellent. We have 2 memorandums of agreement. First one, C, for an overpayment of wages. We've discussed this somewhat in executive session and whatnot, so now to approve the agreement, do you have a motion to approve that? Marty, second. Kevin? Any discussion? All in favor? 6-0. Second memorandum of agreement for district-wide safety coordinators. Motion to approve. Maureen, second. Marty? Discussion, questions? All in favor? 6-0. And principal 3012D APPR agreement. We need to approve. Need a motion for that?
What if we didn't? Wouldn't that be interesting? I always wonder when we don't approve something, what would happen? Because the state says you have to do it anyway? That's just the way my mind thinks, I'm sorry.
Nope, I love it. Besides giving Kate a heart attack, I don't know. So are you giving the motion for
I will
approval?
move to approve. I just always
Give me
think,
the heart
what would happen if we said, no, we don't like what we've already agreed to? We don't like having to do it because
You're
I'm
getting
not necessarily a
very
fan of
nervous.
APPR. I'm just saying, I'm not a fan of APPR in general. So that would make me feel very, but I will motion to approve it. Just to
The irony?
show
Okay.
both sides of the argument.
Marine's a motion to approve, second. Joyce? Any other comments?
No.
We're watching 3012D very carefully.
So under duress, shall we vote, Marine? Right?
I'm under duress.
All in favor? 6-0. So a presentation, our capital projects update. Mark, I assume that's you tonight, right?
Good evening, Mark Esposito with Campus Construction Management. I want to just give a quick update on the transportation project. We extended the bid to Thursday. It was going to be this afternoon with some additional information that went out to the contractors to make sure that we have as many contractors interested in bidding this project as possible. And we'll be opening up those bids on Thursday afternoon. So we'll be bringing more information to the January meeting like the original schedule always had. So for the update on the 2015 capital improvement project, as we get closer to the end of the $29.2 million project, we have our incidental budget of just over $4 million, our construction contingency of just over $130,000, which we'll give an update on, our Phase 1 contracts that were awarded of $15.7 million, and our Phase 2 construction contracts that are awarded of $8.2 million, and our state contract items that went with Phase 2 of just over $1 million. So for our current construction contingency, as we are wrapping up all loose ends on this, we have currently approved a deduct change order amount of $78,629, which is making our current construction contingency amount $210,000. As you can see on the bottom line here, the project team is following about $91,000 worth of items. The majority of these items have been executed, and it is a paperwork process, so putting those two numbers together is going to be leaving us just shy of $120,000 in this contingency as we're nearing the completion of this project. So financially, this project is in very good shape moving forward at the closure of this. So as you can see in Phase 1, we are 100% complete, and at Phase 2, we are 95% complete with contracts. And as our contracts, we hold 5% to make sure that contractors have completed all outstanding items, handed in closeout documents, O&M manuals, warranties, and done all the training that are required. So that's really that 5% that's out there, is making sure all those I's are dotted and T's are crossed for completions of contracts and open-ended items. The allowances have all been spent down to try to minimize what's open on the contracts. And like I showed, the $91,000 of pending. Any questions with our financial situation on the project? So just an update on the Phase 1. The SED final cost reports have been completed and submitted to SED. So we can try to get that aid flowing for the district. And that included all the roofing work at all of the buildings throughout the district. In our Phase 2, our current stuff here at the high school, wrapping up, we have our marble panels are all installed. They have been caulked and they're getting punch list walkthrough is happening tomorrow. We have our main entrance and events entry canopy metal paneling still going on, which will be completed here at the end of this month. The interactive screens, this says one of three. As of yesterday, all three have been installed throughout the building with the completion of the millwork. The seating wall in the front has been completed, and contractors are going around addressing interior and exterior punch lists. The exterior, as weather is pending, is one of the things that we're going to be getting into. A couple of the site items might go into the spring when the weather gets nice again, but they've all been identified and noted by the architects and engineers and project team, so we have them listed to get completed as the weather allows. And we've begun demobilizing from the site, and all of the trailers should be gone by the end of this month also from the front of that high school. So a lot of things are happening here with school going into a holiday recess. A lot of contractors can get back into the building and finish items up. In Martha Brown, again, exterior marble placement, panel replacement has been completed with the punch list going on. Northside Dudley items are completed. Minerva DeLand, we have some punch list items regarding the doors, but they're all operational and being used. And then the same thing at Jefferson Ave. All of that has been completed. So with this project, with all of the roofing that was originally part of the scope of work and the secure entrance and main office renovations that were always originally part of the 29.2, we've been able to accomplish a lot more in this project than originally was anticipated with the corridor renovations, the events entry, the auditorium work that happened there. So I thought it was a very good job of handling the budget and handling the schedule throughout the entire project duration to be able to get all that work done within that same time period that we have always set up. So there was a good job with the project team and the administration that we worked with to get all that work executed out there. So some photos, just if you haven't had a chance to get through the building recently. The event or the main entry metal panel installation. And the side shapes are the ones that are coming that have been in fabrication due to them being on multiple angles. A very difficult cut for that fabrication, so that's something that we've been pushing to get here, and we'll have that before the end of the month installed. The same thing on the back entrance of this. So they're focusing on the main entrance canopy, then get that one wrapped up here, and they're going to go to the back one. And again, all this is anticipated to be done before the end of the month. And I'll look at it from underneath. At the main entrance, or main office, attendance office area, the crust has been installed on the back wall of that space. A look at one of the interactive boards built within the casework. The panels were placed on the outside of the high school. A look over at Martha Brown's panel replacement. Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Looking good.
Happy holidays to you and your family.
So we'll still see you next month, even though this is substantially, you've got new report to give us.
with transportation.
A new report, okay, great.
Excellent. Okay, next item, item 9 on the agenda, board discussion action items. We have policy first readings. Motion to approve those. Maureen first, or second? Joyce? Discussion?
Yes, please, I'd like to discuss a couple of them. And it's just a matter of timing. I was at the CPAC, the Chemical Prevention Advisory Committee meeting earlier this week, and tonight we're approving 2 resolutions regarding tobacco use and drug and use and abuse. And at the CPAC meeting, it was very interesting, the conversation we had about e-cigs. And this new smoking and tobacco use policy, it's pretty much the same policy, it adds e-cigs to the list and the ways in which e-cigs are distributed. And it was fascinating to hear the different information that has come out that we're hearing right now about e-cigs. I just would like to share this with the community, that when e-cigs first came out, the marketing was how safe they were. And many doctors signed on to people that should not, that they wanted their people using nicotine tobacco to switch. Now the information is turning out that if you go to one or the other, chances are you will end up abusing both. So it's not one is better than the other. One seems to be a gateway to the other. And the question is, they're neither good, because the problem with e-cigs at this stage of the game is that there's no information available, or there's no regulation that say you will get so much potency or so little potency that it's sort of like the whole early on marijuana conversations that we used to have. Because it wasn't regulated, you didn't know what you were getting. And so it's very interesting to watch this whole conversation about e-cigs, which we sort of thought from the beginning, now the proof is coming out, the information is there, that this is not a good alternative. And I just want to say that we are right where we need to be in our policy and making sure that e-cigs are there, that they're part of the things that we don't want to see used. And I just wanted to also share that it's relatively new. I asked the DARE officer who was at the meeting, what is DARE doing about cigarettes and e-cigs in the 5th grade classes, because we know it doesn't start at the high school, it starts everywhere. And they will be changing their curriculum so that next year e-cigs will be part of the new DARE program for the 5th graders, for our younger students. So it's just interesting to watch this whole thing move itself along, and to see that we're right in the middle of moving it along and keeping it in our policy as well. So was just the whole time frame of that I just wanted to make a comment about. So that was my comment.
And I would also second that. Our principals and our mental health teams are highly engaged in this conversation, because we don't see it as a tobacco modifier, if you will. We see it as a drug delivery device, and, we don't know what students can put. I mean, we know what they could put in there, and it puts our students at greater risk. And I applaud our principals, I applaud our mental health staff, counselors, to be vigilant and in making sure that we're informing students. It's in our health curriculum, and that's a commitment too, that the board has made, to make sure that we have health throughout all of our grade levels, so we can reinforce healthy life choices. So it's a team effort. But it seems like it's big because, you know, our youth at-risk survey data suggests that our students do use the e-cigs and, you know, we.
Higher than average,
What's that?
at a higher than average
At-
rate
that's right,
compared to other
correct.
places in the county.
Correct, yep.
Specific to opioid, I had a question for the policy committee, but also partly for you, Brett, because we attended, right, the executive committee for Monroe County School Boards, and they invited the health commissioner, I'm not sure what his title was for Monroe County, to talk about specifically the opioid challenges, and he mentioned Narcan was available for anybody now to walk into any pharmacy, and there's a standing order at any pharmacy for anybody to walk in and get a couple of whatever it is, Narcan to administer to
Scripts,
anybody,
yeah.
right? So our policy kind of restricts that to use by the school nurse. Is there a reason we'd want it to be that restricted based on having, I guess, New
Well-
York State support that anybody can administer these now?
That's
or-
something we can certainly look at, you know, we meet with Dr. Leonard. When we enacted that policy, it was all new too. And we're always reviewing our policy and our
Yeah.
practices, but, you know, it's just good to know that systematically, we know where it is. If, you know, I don't want it to be too haphazard, so it's good to know that our nurses are leading the charge there. But we can certainly look at, you know, what are the best practices.
And I agree, that probably is the best practice, unless it restricts people who might be right there immediately able to respond, and they have the capability,
Yeah.
who would say otherwise, well, I can't, because I'm not. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, because that was new to me, that, wow, any of us can walk in and get that prescription, that it's a standing prescription for anybody. And supposedly protected by this and that, it's Good Samaritan laws, but I don't know if anybody can get sued, right? We hear about all the time for any reason, regardless of the Good Samaritan laws, so.
But given that, I don't think they can still give out a ibuprofen to somebody, I'm guessing there would be a law that would prohibit that. I don't know that, but
Probably.
that would be my guess, since
Yeah.
everything seems to be restricted.
Good,
Yeah.
good point.
No, this seems specific to Narcan. I think that says something about the level of concern that must be going on, that they would say, hey, the standing prescription for any citizen to get 2 doses of this or whatever. Anyway, thanks. I didn't have any changes. I was just curious about if that was new information or how we want to take that information for policy committee. So we have a motion already to approve, right? Any other questions or all in favor? 6-0. Board policy, second readings. We saw all these last month or previous to that. Motion to approve the second reading. Judy, second. Joyce? Or discussion? All in favor? 6-0. School-sponsored field trips. Motion to approve those. Marty, second. Joyce? Any questions, discussions? All in favor? 6-0. And then cooperative participation agreement for our dental plan administration. Motion to approve that agreement. Judy, second. Maureen, questions, discussion? All
So
in-
this
oh.
is part of our consortium that we have?
Yeah, so the district's dental plan is self-funded, and this is the administration fee. I will draw one quick note. I noticed that just in the contract, it needs to update the date till December of 18, so, in executing the contract.
Oops.
Since you opened the door to, but it's approving the renewal of the contract as it is, so,
Through not the end of this year, but through the end of next year.
correct.
Right, okay. All in favor of through the end of next year? 6-0.
Thanks, Matt.
And then an advocacy discussion, right? Joyce, I'll turn this kind of over to you, I guess, to lead us through. You had mentioned this to us previously.
Yes, that the Greece School Board sent us a letter. It was in our backups. I hope everybody got to read it or skim it. And they're looking for support. They're looking for support on presenting this. I'm not quite clear on where they're sending it. All it said was to whom it concerns. So either.
Concerns us.
If we have questions, Pete, you can either go to their president or I can go to their legislative representative, either way. But I think we should discuss whether we want to, clearly we'd have to make some changes so it reflects Fairport as opposed to them, but I think basically what they put in there was valid.
Can you just tell other people what's regarding?
Well, it's not wanting to give the tests, and their validity, their usefulness, they're questioning all of that. They have a lot of opt-outs, which is obviously similar to us, and so they feel they really aren't valid to them when, just a little over half of their students are taking them. They're seeing differences in whether those who take the tests versus those who opt out of the test. So they had a variety of very good arguments. They also went on to say they can evaluate their students very well themselves with valid assessments, and they gave a litany of, graduation rates and all of that stuff as to how they can evaluate how their students are doing. So they're looking for people, obviously, to stand with them on this.
Right. So they thought they'd approved this earlier. At this point, they haven't? Or?
I think they're still trying to finesse it. I think she dashed it off. Well, we got it before Monroe County School Boards because I told her we had our meeting tonight and that we were willing to discuss it, and she was so thrilled that we would discuss this and possibly, support them, that she sent it to me and then went on and sent it to Sherry, who sent it to other districts. So I think everyone has seen it. She said they're still tweaking it, but I think they approved it in theory, sort of, in Greece. They're now going on to their bargaining units and seeing if anybody will, within Greece, if the teachers' union administrators will sign with them. So that's still to be determined.
Well, it's a 3-page letter, right? I mean, well thought out. It seems like, or at least they put out their case very well there. I do love that they ended with, we evaluate our students, and here's how we do it. And it's, I don't know, what is that, 15 bullet points of different ways that they're constantly assessing, and or different ways that they can get to see how their students are progressing. But we've heard a lot of the arguments, because we've used them ourselves, right, that the results aren't readily available. That doesn't make it very impactful on a student to know where they need help, and just all kinds of things in here. So I'm in favor. It meets with what we've done in the past, our resolutions, personally, that we support. But support means they want us to adopt our own letter type thing?
Well, she mentioned in there that, we would every district would probably have to make some adjustments to match what we do and what we think and all of that. So I think we would want to make it our own, and I don't know just how they want to go about that, because they're not asking for us to just sign the letter.
Right.
So I don't know if they want to have a packet of letters from a variety of districts asking for this, or just how they want to handle it. Again, that's where I think either you and their president, or I and the legislative representative can discuss that further. But I'm with you. I think it's a good letter.
They're submitting the letter to who?
I'm not clear on that, because it doesn't say that in the letter, so that's one of the first questions, is where will they be sending this and to whom? It just says, to whom this concerns, so I don't know if it's going to SED or the regents or the legislature or where.
I think that's important for us to know.
Yes.
I definitely support the essence and the sentiment that they're expressing, but I'd like to know more about what they're thinking, where it will go, what they're expecting
Right.
in response.
Yeah.
I always try to look at an issue from more than one point of view, and I thought, who is impacted by this? We have right now a very strong group of people who opt out from tests for the past 2 or 3 years. It has been very high. It went down. The people who would be impacted by this is the people who couldn't vote, yes, I want my kid to take the test. I don't know if they realize what they're doing, but I did hear from some parents who said to me at one point, I want my kid to have the right to take the test. They thought they were being belligerent by telling me this stuff, and I was like, okay, we give them choices. And as I said, I tried to figure out who would be upset if we said, we took away your choice, we're not going to do the tests. Well, then how do I know how my kid's doing? I think that this has to be communicated to the parents as well. You know, that if we make this decision, it's not just the board's decision, it's a community decision, and the parents, you need to know what we're doing and why we're doing it, and what other ways you can get. Because when I ask them, what did you learn from those tests, they don't know. You know, it's the same family, so what did you learn when your kid took the test? Did you learn anything that you didn't already know? Because that's always been my issue, is that these tests are a snapshot on this day, the day after the kid had thrown up the night before, the day after whatever, this kid scores well, this kid scores poorly, and is it an accurate reflection of how the kid is doing? It's a snapshot. And we all know how bad some of our snapshots can be. Or good. But I like the idea. I would like it to be more than the board getting involved in this conversation. If there's any way that we can get more of community involvement. And right now, we are so full of community involvement with these other things going on. I like the idea, I like the concept, but I don't know that I like the fact that it would be just coming from us by ourselves.
Well, we're
And
just
you know,
advocating.
how do we
We're-
get the community more involved in this to recognize that this is a lovely waste of time,
What
in
was
many
our
people's
opt-out
opinion.
rate?
50%.
50%.
Yeah.
I would say half the community
That's
would
why I
agree
said,
with this.
I looked at this,
I think that's a pretty good indicator of
and
our
I said,
community.
50% is an agreement, 50% did not, you know, did not have to say, yes, take it, they just had to let it go. But I just would like to see that the community is aware of and engaged in this particular conversation, instead of just feeling like it's coming from the board.
But didn't that come up in focus groups? Were we talking about the fact that in the focus groups, there wasn't an individual that said we wished that Fairport didn't opt out?
That's right.
I
Yeah,
thought-
that's right.
I think all we did is allow people to opt out. That's all we've done. We've allowed you to opt out. You had to sign it, instead of if you don't do anything, the kid takes the test.
Right.
Now we're trying to say if you don't do anything, the kid doesn't take the test.
Oh, I,
Are we saying?
that's not what I think the letter
Well,
says.
if we are opting out of the test, then there will be no test administrated in Fairport. None of those 3A tests would be would be opting. It wouldn't be your choice anymore.
And the final paragraph, right, says specifically, please stop, well, that's not specific, I was summarizing, so I shouldn't summarize, right, but take that money basically that you're using to create these tests and support the schools better and the
Oh,
faculty and staff that allows
absolutely.
us to do it. So it's asking them basically to indeed rescind it, but at this point, we're under those obligations. So I guess we're not opting out because we can't by law, but it is asking to basically,
Well, I just think that if we're going to have this conversation, it's got to be more than just the board.
Well, I think we represent the community. We're elected to make certain decisions. And I do think by half of our parents opting their children out, it speaks to the fact that half the people are
Paid
so
attention.
set against it that they
Paid
won't
attention.
let their kids. In that 50% who did take it, there may also be some who don't like it, but just feel obligated to have their child take it. So I'd say at least half the parents don't like the testing. I
Listen,
think that
Joyce, you know me, I'm just
speaks.
coming up with an
I know,
alternative
I know,
argument.
but I
Makes for
do
good
feel
discussion.
as though they have spoken to us by keeping 50% of the children away from taking the test.
I'm channeling my inner Matt. It's 48% for ELA and 49% for math, so.
and that was last year, it's
Like that.
down from previous years where we could say the average.
Yeah, it was up. It was like 60% or,
So, okay, you're teaching them well, man.
it was painful.
Precise.
So what are you looking for us from us, Joyce? Are we looking to say, do we want to have a subcommittee to have this conversation and come up with our own draft of what we want?
Well, I think we do have to tweak
And
this
find out
somewhat.
where's Greece sending theirs so we can decide where we would like this information to go?
Although it sounds like it, right, why limit it? I mean, send it out to everybody.
Right,
You're right,
well,
every,
And
federal,
they
the
might be doing
state,
that, I don't know.
SED included, regions.
Because, oh, sorry, please.
It sounds as if we need some more information from Greece to start.
Yeah.
And then we can move forward from there, or not.
In terms
Or not.
of,
I put the or not in there for you.
Thanks.
Okay.
in terms of coordinating, right, to have a better impact and, partly to Maureen's point, as we know, Joyce, from being, right, and I didn't go, but you know, they'd rather hear from not the elected officials who represent their community, but from the community directly. It wouldn't hurt to get people sending in their own letters that,
Well, if we get our advocacy thing going, we can have parents do that.
right,
as
utilize
well.
it. Mhm.
Or sign on to the letter with us, or whatever, however we decide to go. But I do think Kevin's right, we need a little more information on it.
I know the advocacy committee is an important initiative. As we move along, we'll be hearing and talking more about the advocacy committee. Now we have a nice long list of community representatives who are very interested in getting involved. So we'll be using that to build upon that, this conversation of advocacy.
Great, well, thank you for making us aware of this, Joyce. For now, then, we'll just wait a little bit longer until they finish up or,
Okay, do you want
Did
to
you want me
reach
to
out to the president, or do you want me to keep in touch with Mary Caitlin?
you've already started, would you like to?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you. That will be sure that it happens, in other. Any other comments or questions? And okay, well, I look forward to hearing more, because I love the letter. Any other comments before we move into executive session from board members, or? No? Great, then we
You
do.
already took our thunder by saying, Mary, you have a good holiday, whatever one you want to celebrate. So there.
There you go, thanks. Then we have an executive session, need a motion to enter in. Do I read off who's invited, or is that just okay on the paper? Okay, so motion to move into executive session. Kevin, second. Marty? All in favor? 6-0. We are not making any decisions, so when we come out of executive session, we will adjourn and leave for the night. Thank you all for attending.